our first speaker of the evening. Quincy Knight grew up in Connecticut on the edges of suburbia and farmland, with a deep connection to the rolling fields and the horses that inhabited them. She completed her BFA in literature at Colby Sawyer College in the Lakes region of New Hampshire, and then was drawn to the unique lifestyle and completely Western landscape that is Gunnison, Colorado. She's excited to honor that lifestyle and landscape with the written word through the Woman of the Land project. Welcome, Quincy.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you, the Community Foundation of the Gunnison Valley, for having us and for inviting us to this event. Let me find my clicker here. So I am here to talk about the Woman of the Land project. That's a project I'm the lead writer and co-creator on with my dear friend Tina Butterfield. She would have been thrilled to be here tonight, but she is a art professor at Western, the chair of the art department, and she is actually out of town at a Western training. So I'm going in alone tonight. It is true that I work at GVH and then I'm the assistant director of human resources there, but tonight I'm the lead writer and co-creator of this project. So with that, I'd like to start with a poem for the project. This poem is called Women of the Land. In the beginning, we bore children, stoked the campfires, fed and clothed the village with hunting spoils of men. Our hands were strong from working the land. Our hands and feet stirred the soil. We told stories and legends, passed down tradition and folklore around those fires. When the others came, the land absorbed our tears and blood. Others of us came across oceans, taming the land that we didn't quite understand. The land was harsh to us in our learning. We followed the men, gardened, cooked, and wrote letters across oceans. We created schools, churches, and communities on the stolen land the first people had thrived on before. Our relationship to the land changed. Buildings grew taller. Our feet and hands no longer touched soil. Automobiles drove us over the land and didn't live and breathe like our horses and oxen. Men worked and we had dinner waiting. Metal planes flew through the air, and after a while, the passengers barely looked out to admire the clouds. We fought to vote. We fought to own the land alone without a husband co-signer. We worked outside our families and homes. The concrete beneath our feet separated us from the land. Over many generations, we forgot how to process hunting spoils, plant food, tell legends, and send letters. Some days we don't even touch the land. Sometimes it is many days in a row. Sometimes we can't remember how long it has been. We look out the windows of our homes and admire the land. We long to reconnect to it. We take off our shoes and walk in the grass. We reach out to touch the dirt, to dig. We feel each grain consciously from our place and time. We learn to hunt, to fish, to ride, and to grow our own food again. We relearn how to light campfires. We teach our children to be good stewards as the land slowly dwindles. We tell the stories of the now. It connects us back to the beginning. Thank you. And with that, I just want to start with an acknowledgement. I think Jess's moment at the beginning of the presentation was so apt and so honoring of kind of what we're facing and where we have been as a history. And I know that poem is heavy on the immigrant side of the story, and less so the Indigenous experience, which is much different. So we just want to acknowledge that. And we're also working with some Indigenous artists and poets to make sure that their voices are sitting alongside ours with this project and that we're celebrating their perspective and their connection to the land. We don't want to tell or own those stories. We want to elevate the stories that they are telling. So I'm saying we a lot in that poem at the beginning of the project. Who are we anyway? So I'm Quincy Knight, as you know. My co-creator of this project is Tina Butterfield. She is the chair of the art department at Western. She's been in the Valley for about 20 years, and she is a very accomplished oil and watercolor artist, and she specializes in portraits and landscapes. So that's kind of what she brings to the Woman of the Land project. So her connection to the land is a lot through her art, and her art kind of, she gets inspired by the landscape to create her art. My inspiration in the landscape is really the animals that inhabit it. I have a deep connection for animal husbandry, mostly dogs and horses, horses that think they're dogs, as you can see here. So they inspire me a lot through my writing. And I'm a prolific writer. I've been writing my whole life. I've kept a journal since I was probably 7. I do voice memos in the car. I write on napkins while my children are watching cartoons, but I've never shared my art with the world until now, and this project has inspired me to do so. So how did it start? How did we begin our Woman of the Land project? So it all started with Tina looking out her kitchen window, and she was looking out over ranch land in the Gunnison Valley. So she looks out over ranch land from her kitchen window. And she started musing and pondering. And I'm learning a lot that that's a big part of the artistic process, is really kind of coming up with that inspiration and innovation. So she started thinking about that horizon and that landscape she was looking at, and who had inhabited it over hundreds of years, who had looked over that landscape and that scenery that she was looking at now. So she started researching, and she started looking into that, and she started reading depictions of the folks that had inhabited the Gunnison Valley, indigenous, immigrant, and she started noticing something, that there were quite a few more stories about the men than there were about the women. And so she kind of took note of that and thought, that's interesting. And then she started realizing the pictures of the women that she did see, they fell very firmly into 3 categories. So we have the pioneer woman. So think of like the photographs that you've all seen, waist-high prairie grass, woman in 18th century garb. She's usually in the background. She usually has kids with her. That's the kind of perfect prairie wife. Then we have the wild outlier. So think about Annie Oakley, for example. And then there's the noble indigenous portrait. So all of the women's photographs that she found from Gunnison history fell into one of those categories. And she wondered, did those women's stories get told accurately, fully? Did they have the space in that time to tell their story? Or was it told for them? Or was it lost? And then she started thinking about the now, the women of the now, connecting us, and the connection to the land that a lot of women in the Gunnison Valley have. So she put out a call. She put out a call on social media and said, hey, if you think you're a woman of the land, reach out to me. She got over 100 responses in the first 24 hours. So there's definitely an appetite and an energy and excitement around the identity of being a woman of the land. And that meant all sorts of things we couldn't even imagine. People saying, I'm a woman of the land, this is why. And we were like, yes. And so Tina and I are really good friends, and we were having tea one night. And I said, hey, did you see this cool post? And she's like, well, I was the OP on that. And we started talking about the project. And she said, I love depicting these women. I love hearing their stories, but my artwork, my painting of them is only a moment in time. And I feel like I want to tell deeper stories about these women. And I took a deep breath and I said, I'm a writer. Let's do it. And so a partnership was born. And I'm really proud of this partnership because, maybe we don't need 1,000 words because we have Tina's beautiful and amazing art, but a few will help, tell the stories with a little more depth. So we've created this partnership, and we both have a lot to contribute to it in very, very different ways. So how do we thrive, inspire, and connect throughout this project? So I bring the written word. I bring that depth to the women's stories. Tina brings her beautiful and amazing and sometimes massive landscape portraits, her beautiful artwork for these women, mostly painted from photographs. She also creates paint from the earth. So some of her landscape paintings are painted with brushes that are made of sticks. They're painted with paints mixed from materials from the earth. So she incorporates those things into her artwork as yet another celebration of our lands. We definitely both have a deep affinity for the women that we are trying to represent and depict. That is our why. That's what keeps us going. We're both professional women who work full time and have small kids at home and are also trying to create art. So when we feel like we have to dig deep to come up with some creative energy, it's easy to for this project because we love it so much. And then who all here knows Tina Butterfield? Okay, full on 100% extrovert, right? I'm not so much. So we have created together this amazing process that's also really honoring of us as artists. So when we go through our process for our Woman of the Land, we ask for a self-profession or a nomination. So some women are saying, hey, it's me, I'm a woman of the land. Other women are saying, oh, my friend over here, she'll never raise her hand, but you should talk to her. Then we connect. Tina and we call them wattles. Tina and the wattle will get together in the landscape that they love, that they are connected to, and we will interview and take photos, which Tina then sends to me. And then we both start ruminating on the subject material. We're looking for accurate, realistic, non-romanticized depictions of what these women do, how they're connected to the land. Then we share our works with them because we want them to be on board with the art that we're creating and saying, yes, this sounds like me. This is who I am and what I stand for. If we get feedback, we go back to the drawing board and repeat. Then we do it again with another woman of the land. And our final goal is to really create art installations around the state of Colorado and have a coffee book available for purchase in autumn 2024. So that's a little about the process that we've created that's really honoring to each of us as an artist. We've gotten to do a lot of really exciting things with our project. It's already kind of taken off in a really organic way, in a way that we weren't expecting or maybe ready for, but we're saying yes to everything because we're just so excited about it. So here are some recent things that have happened for us. One of our featured women of the land is Dr. Jessica Young, who you heard from. And along with her, we were just featured in Project Upland magazine, which is a national bird hunting publication. And upland, for those of you who don't know much about bird hunting, is anything other than marshland. So it refers to the types of birds being hunted, which I never knew, but I'm learning so much from all these amazing women. And Gabby Zeldambide is another woman of the land that we've featured. We call her the Huntress. She's about 5 feet tall, and she goes out and hunts bear. And she's just amazing. And she actually connected us with Project Upland because she heard Tina and I speak in Grand Junction at a conference. So it's been really amazing to be a part of that. I'd like to show you one more woman that we're working on focusing on. This is the actual horizon that Tina looks out, the actual genesis of the project, the horizon she was looking at when she started thinking, what do these women have to say? What stories can I tell? So her name is Kirsten Termarquez. She's a rancher. And Tina was fortunate enough to be able to spend a day with her family on branding day. And then she had a quiet kind of moment with her and took a little walk. And that's what kind of, I heard that interview and heard Tina's depiction of branding day. And so I wrote a poem about it. And it was kind of funny because they were walking, so they were kind of breathing hard. And at one point, Kirsten said rancher in a way that sounded like rancher. And I was like, that might be something there. And so, her amazing work on the ranch and the description of that in the interview led way to this poem. So this poem is called Ranch Her. My eyes are open long before the dawn. Silence abounds, but I must move on. Slowly I rise, walk down the hall. Coffee pot started. I survey it all. Looking out the window at the kitchen sink, I see generations pushed to the brink. By this land, the weather, and the price of hay, none of us would have it any other way. The sky turns lavender, yellow, then blue. The tall grasses stir, and the cattle too. I turn to the oven, breakfast casserole in, feeding the helpers before we begin. Lunch is already prepped, tea steeped, dishes clean. I return to the bedroom to put on my jeans. My husband and kids are starting to wake. Today we will all have our places to take. By 8, I hear the cattle guard. Families here and ready to work hard. Helpers start to gather in the kitchen. We are all clear on today's mission. Calves need branded, vaxxed, and tags. We move outside as the children lag. Husbands on horses driving calves to the chute. Kids running around wearing cowboy boots. Moms managing sunscreen and hats. Also manning gates and holding the slats. The babies get branded, the mark of our ranch. Burning flesh smells, but none of us blanch. The dust is rising, covers faces and necks. By lunchtime, my kitchen's also a wreck. Sweat, ripped jeans, and one knuckle crunched. We laugh it off and I'll have lunch. Sitting in the shade of our oak tree, we're so grateful that the help is free. By sunset, the family all goes home. In the quiet again, I am alone. Husband checks fences, kids bathed and in bed. I turn to the kitchen window again. Dishes cleaned, kids' lunches and breakfast prepped. Monday will come quick after I've slept. Tomorrow, I'll go to work to help pay the bills, provide our insurance, and feel fulfilled. It takes all of us to make it run. Our family's commitment is never done. Our blood and bones are tied to this land, not a burden, but pride for our brand. This ranch is more than a home to me. It's a living, breathing legacy. Thank you so much.